and welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. As usual, I am joined with Nathan, and after a little bit of a mini break, a bit of a holiday for myself, and just an overall break for the podcast, we are back with a bumper edition of the Boropolis podcast. Nathan, we've got more or less 3 games to go at, and typical Borough fashion, a bucket load of new injuries, new updates on injuries, more so kind of the extent of that they're a little bit worse than first feared. Obviously, we do have a win to talk about during the podcast. I think, to be honest, though, given we're just at the very beginning of the international break, and we've got a bit of a chance to sort of sit back and reflect on Borough going into the sort of crunch period of the season, it's going to give us a nice chance just to almost preview the run-in and just reflect on kind of where these last 3 results have left Middlesbrough sitting in the table. So obviously, I don't just go complete silence on you during non-recording weeks. We have, of course, been in contact, so I know how you are, that you haven't been missing the podcast too much. But overall, how's the last few weeks been?
The last few weeks have been all right, Chris, but the last few days have been a truly terrible time, which we're definitely not going to get into.
No, let's just pretend it never happened. That's kind of how I've been dealing with it, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll simply move on. But yeah, I hear that you had a fantastic holiday in the sun and have brought back the weather with you. It's been all right in Borough the last couple of days as well. So yeah, I trust you enjoyed your time on a sunbed and watching the ponies have a race last
Yeah,
week.
yeah. I mean, I wish my betting had gone as well as what the weather did, because the weather was beautiful. However, a lot of my Cheltenham tips were not beautiful. They were, in fact, pretty dreadful. And yeah, I mean, again, it's not quite as much of a low as what Sunday evening was, but there was no real winners for me during Cheltenham. But other than that, as you say, lovely to just sit on a sunbed, do nothing, take in a few different Borough games. I thought, you know what, where we left off was actually off the back of 2 wins. So I was thinking, we'll go to Swansea, we'll do the job there. Then we've got 2 games coming thick and fast, winnable games. And who knows where we'll be when I return back to the UK. Obviously, just throwing it back a bit really now, just to kind of, I guess, bring us up to speed in terms of what's been and gone since we last recorded. There was obviously the whole Swansea debacle. We're not going to go that far back. If I'm brutally honest, I can't remember much of what happened other than the fact it was a pretty dreadful performance, arguably the worst of the season, and there was a whole load of injury news around then. So I think the big one really was the fact that more or less Ben Doak at that point, prior to the Swansea game, I believe, was actually effectively ruled out for the season. He's back at Liverpool now, and it's looking very unlikely that we'll probably see him in a Middlesbrough shirt again. I mean, again, it's still just as disappointing, but I guess time's a healer a little bit. Still pretty crushing news for Middlesbrough's season.
Yeah, 100%. Been arguably our best attacker all season.
Yeah.
We know what he was like with his pace and being an outlet for this team, dragging us up the pitch at times, but also just being effective and being able to be direct, get at his man and deliver crosses into the box. It feels like this one isn't too impactful, really, because he's been out and missing for 2 months already. So it didn't necessarily hit me that hard as a crushing blow for our season, really, because we've been dealing without him for, as I say, a long period of time now. So yeah, a little bit of a frustrating one that we probably won't see him play for us again. But yeah, we certainly wish him well with his recovery, and if we can sneak a couple of games out of him before the end of the season, then that would be great. But
I mean, if we do get any games out of him, it's most likely going to be in the playoffs. So if we see him in a Middlesbrough shirt again, then something's gone right between now and the end of the season. So there is that to, fingers crossed, hopefully look forward to. I mean, other injury news, Aylin, Rav, Edmondson, it was really after or in the build-up to the Swansea game that the sort of problems, especially at centre-half, began to mount. And it was confirmed really that a lot of those injuries were going to probably be at least, weeks rather than days. And I think at that point, it was more or less confirmed as well that the vast majority of our central defenders were not going to be back, at least before the end of the kind of run of games prior to the international break. So that was a bit of a punch in the gut. Then we got news of a 36-year-old Eric Peters being on trial. I mean, it felt a bizarre one and it stunk of desperation. Now we know that he pretty much trained for a few days and the decision was made that actually he's not going to be for us. I mean, it's probably going to be quite a quick reaction from you, but was there any part of you that was slightly intrigued by Eric Peters?
Nope.
Yeah, I was expecting just as a succinct of an answer. So, yeah, we'll move on from that. Just touching on Swansea, I think the main sort of points that I did touch on, it was, especially off the high of the 2 wins, you expected Middlesbrough to go into it, give it a real good go. Swansea have been a bit of a flip-flop of a season for them. They've sacked one manager, have had, I don't want to say a manager bounce, but they've marginally improved, but they weren't anything special on the day. We were absolutely horse shit, really, to put it nicely. We were just not good. We were not good enough on the day. We didn't. It was one of those games, like a really easy criticism. And we said last podcast, I remember that, you can't accuse this group of players for not really putting everything on the line and really trying for the manager. It was one of those games where you watch it and just think they've turned up here and I don't really know what they expected to happen, but whatever it was, you're not going to win a football match by just turning up on the day. And it was pretty grim. And I think the most telling thing for the performance was the fact that Michael Carrick, Middlesbrough boss, Michael Carrick, actually made 2 substitutes at half-time. Giles got hooked. Marcus Forss got hooked. Marcus Forss, probably somewhat of an easy target. Ryan Giles, I mean, we can get onto him a little bit later in terms of individuals, but it's really, really not panning out the way that we all hoped for. And yeah, it was a miserable afternoon in Wales, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it only got compounded late on in that second half as Dale Fry limped off injured and added to the injury list that was already ever growing. And now it left us with no fit centre halves. And obviously, we know how the last 2 games have went with Johnny Howson coming back in to the squad firstly, but straight back into the team and at centre half as well. And alongside Neto, who deputised at left centre half when Ayling went off in that derby game. And in fairness to both of them, they've done a really good job, which we'll get onto a little bit later on when we sort of review the next 2 games. But yeah, the Swansea game, obviously we're talking about it 2 weeks on, but one definitely to write off. It was, yeah, really, really poor. No shots on target away from home. It's unacceptable, really, to go to a ground where, as you mentioned, they've had a little bit of a wishy-washy season, and you're off the back of 2 wins, and you're hoping that you can go there and really sort of lay down a marker, and we just didn't turn up, which is truly a sad indictment of where the team's at the minute. They can throw in these performances, which is truly, truly not acceptable for the fans that travel down there or for the players that are just going out there and wearing the shirt. You can't just have and afford these games in the season, especially off the back of a run of form where they've lost week after week after week for nearly 6 weeks on the bounce. So yeah, totally unacceptable, and they needed a reaction against QPR 100%.
Yeah, and in fairness to them, they did somewhat give us that in the QPR game. Obviously, on the Tuesday night, there was changes. The vast majority of the team that started the game against QPR was pretty much, from memory, more or less the team which ended the Swansea game. Iheanacho started. Illing Jr., who obviously come on and replaced Giles in the Swansea game, started at left back. And as you say, it was really important that not only we bounced back in terms of a result, but also the fact that we put on a performance, really. And I must say, I was quite surprised. But the first half was everything that you really want from your team, on the front foot, at home, fast. It wasn't pedestrian. We weren't taking too many touches. We were attacking with meaning. We were passing the ball with meaning and with intent. And I mean, even just prime example, the first goal, Hackney flies into a challenge with real intent to win the ball back, wins the ball back, great tackle, sets his ass away down the line. He cuts it in for Tommy Conway, and that's Tommy Conway's bread and butter, really. But overall, a really second half, not so much, but first half especially, I feel like we got a reaction that we were wanting.
Yeah, and I remember speaking to you on the night that I felt we should have been out of sight really in the first half. The amount of chances that we did create. Obviously, we get the goal, but still, despite having a pretty good first half, going in 1-0 at the break, they still had a massive opportunity at the end of that first half through
Still
Pal.
don't know how he missed, to be honest.
Yeah, he's 12 yards out and in the center of the goal, and he's put it wide. I don't know how he hasn't hit the target. I don't know how he hasn't scored. Yeah, it's a really, really bad miss. And on another day, you're going in at halftime, ruin your missed opportunities, but came out in the second half, got our second goal through Dijksteel, quite similar to that one at Leeds earlier in the season, coming in off his left foot. He does look very, very uncomfortable as he's dribbling with the ball through into the box. But yeah, it's a nice controlled finish with his left foot into the corner. He steers that one in. And yeah, Borough always make it a little bit nervy for the fans in the ground with conceding with 10 minutes to go and then having to deal with a couple of long throws towards the end of the game. And I think I would have handed my season ticket in if their keeper nodded it in the final minute of stoppage time.
Yeah, there was that huge chance, wasn't there? And I mean, especially when you're slightly behind anyway, watching on a stream. Obviously, sat watching my iPad with a drink in hand, thinking this could be going a lot worse. There was Champions League on a different screen. Obviously, I was fixated on that, and looking down and seeing an unmarked QPR goalkeeper, I thought, surely not. And unfortunately, Mark Travers is just about able to basically stop the ball going in. It's not a great header, and he doesn't generate the power that perhaps a player of a different position, not a goalkeeper, might have been able to generate. But yeah, I don't want to say we survived because it wasn't some sort of huge onslaught. I thought QPR were pretty terrible, to be honest. Given the issues that we had at centre half, they, for the most part, during that game, tried to persist with playing that big lump Frey up top. And weirdly enough, completely out there one, I'm sure we were linked with him years and years ago. I'm talking like 2013 job. And I also seem to remember him having really long hair. I mean, he doesn't anymore. And he was really useless on the night, but just a random bit of Borough trivia for you there. Yeah, they didn't really sort of get balls into the box and try and make it a difficult one for two players, as you say, in Johnny Howson and Neto Borges, who aren't centre-backs by trade. But I thought both of them were great, to be honest. A new pairing, another new pairing. Obviously, we got to see a little bit of that pairing in the closing stages of Swansea. But I felt, especially given even more so the fact after the game we found out Johnny Howson literally hadn't trained still up until the point of reaching the QPR game. It was all the more impressive. It was an absolutely assured performance from Johnny Howson. And I think immediately the talk was, God, if Johnny Howson had have been available for even sort of half of the games that he's missed this season, would we be in a better position? I'd probably be inclined to agree. And again, we'll get onto it just in terms of that pairing and obviously where we're at, where we're going forward and kind of injuries. And I guess like to what extent they're potentially going to miss in the running and how many games they might be available for. But yeah, that game especially gave me a lot of confidence because I felt, although yes, this Borough team, we've seen it time and time again, they'll throw a performance in like Swansea. I'm not going to lie, I went into that QPR game expecting the worst. I did think that after a performance as bad and such a drop off, that it was going to be really difficult to even get back to sort of a semi-impressive level where you can go and beat a QPR side that, look, again, not so much to the extent of Swansea. They've had a couple of decent like sort of wins where we've put a few results together, but up against Cifuentes, who's really working with not a lot of talent in that QPR squad. Let's be fair, they've done okay this season, and I thought it was massively important that we started on the front foot. As I say, put a performance on, and we did do that. I was surprised, as I say, but pretty pleased. And then after that game, you kind of thought, well, we're going to go to Luton, who have struggled all season. Again, this is Middlesbrough under Michael Carrick in this season. It would almost be more typical Borough of this season to go to Luton and get beat and throw in another Swansea-like performance after stepping up the levels midweek. And I think, in fairness, first half especially, they were very, very lucky. And there was a bit of grit and determination, which also played its part, but they were very lucky not to be on the receiving end of a little bit of a battering first half, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. It was funny. I'd sort of I went to Luton on Saturday and was assessing the opposition on my phone before arriving at Kenilworth Road, and it shook me to see that Luton had scored the least goals out of any team in the division so far this season. They were up there for big chances missed, however, and they do create not a lot away from home, but they do all right at home relatively. And I'm going to be totally honest, from what I've seen from some of the reaction on social media, I'm quite baffled as to what people were expecting going to Kenilworth Road on Saturday, because me as a fan was going down there with the intention of first of all seeing the new ground, but thinking I I don't necessarily think that we'll get anything this afternoon, because a side that is down there fighting for their lives at the bottom end of the table, but also knowing the caliber of players that they do have and the type of players that they do have and the style of football that they play, I was fully expecting them to come out the blocks exactly like they did, pin us in and create chances, because especially against a back line of Howson and Borges, you are going to create chances if you are somewhat competent of a football team. And with Morris and Adebayo at the top of the pitch and Doughty and Jones on the flanks, you're going to create opportunities. And they did. They created a hell of a lot of opportunities. And look, if they had a little bit more confidence about them, they could have hit the target three, four, five times in the opening 40 minutes. Asgard missed two chances as well coming from midfield. He missed two chances.
Gilt
Um,
edge chances
Gil,
as
Gil,
well.
yeah,
They weren't half chances. They were. It's one of them where you go, it's probably easier to score on
yeah,
reflection.
yeah, 100%. Morris had a couple of efforts, and Bio had one cleared off the line and one pass to him from Aidan Morris.
Yeah, good assist that would have been. Yeah,
Yeah, so like, look, this has all happened in the first 40 minutes of the game. They should have been out of sight, really. They really should have been out of sight. And if I'm honest, there wasn't a lot that we could have done about it, because they just created chances. The wide men were effective. The front players, Morris and Adebayo, although a lot of Luton fans are a little bit sort of hit and miss on them at the minute, they do cause chaos. They do. Morris is there pinning house and creating chances for Asgard, and Walsh as well, who's hitting shots from the edge of the box. But the difference being on Saturday afternoon, especially in that first half, is we have a top level championship goalkeeper in the middle of our goal in Mark Travers, who makes save after save after save. And look, I'm not saying that any of them were necessarily worldy saves that he made, but would I be as confident really if we had, I don't know,
If a
Kenny
Senny
Dieng?
Dieng is in goal or a Tom Glover, we concede at least one of them.
Yeah,
And I think it's honestly that simple. Like you say, I mean, there's this like developing narrative with Mark Travers that he, it's like black and white that great goalkeeper, fantastic shot stopper, probably in terms of just preventing the ball from going in the net, one of the best keepers we've had since Darren Randolph. But on the other side of the spectrum, he is a bit of a scare on the ball, and his distribution is that bad that, we could get better. If I'm completely honest, it may be a little bit of a prehistoric view. I don't think it is particularly, because I don't think he's certainly not great, and that's not the case that I'm trying to make here. But in terms of, do I think, and I mean, let's be right here. Senny Dieng had a pretty exceptionally, by his standards, bad start to the season in terms of individual errors. But if you said to me, like I said about Johnny Housen, had we have had Mark Travers for this full season, do I think he would have saved us more than enough points that would outweigh his potentially kicking it into Rosette a few times? Without a shadow of a doubt. In terms of keeping the ball and doing the basics that a goalkeeper is meant to do, preventing the ball from going in the net, I don't think there's much better available in the Championship. And I say available, I mean, we've got him on loan. For me, I've seen a lot of people rightfully praise him. He's one of them where, as of whenever the transfer window opens, you go to Bournemouth straight away and say, we want him. How much?
yeah,
And I think all successful teams, you look at Sheffield United and Cooper, arguably being one of the, well, not even arguably, he's been the best keeper in the division all season, hasn't he? And Trafford, I know as well, but for me, I prefer Cooper out of the two. But in terms of having a successful team in this division, you need a spine. And I think largely, especially in the Championship, you just need a reliable pair of hands. And Mark Travers absolutely provides that for this Middlesbrough team. So for me, he's right at the very top of our summer shopping list if we want to be a serious club next season.
yeah, 100%. And I'd seen people talking over social media the last couple of days about the prospect of Mark Travers and Solgren as your one and two next season all day would be arguably the best one and two in the division from what we've seen of Bryn as well. We sort of expected this from Travers, or at least I did, and you did as well from when I've spoken to you when we first got linked to him from Stoke fans a couple of seasons ago when he was there. They spoke about his shot stopping ability. He's absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I would say that over the years, I have both enjoyed and loathed our goalkeepers for their ability to knock a ball over the top of a winger and onto a fullback's toe, but also in
Been a few
Zach's.
heart and mouth times, hasn't there?
There's been some heart and mouth times from both Zach Steffen and from Senny Dieng, and there's also been some howlers from the pair of them as well. And look, Mark Travers also had a clanger at Bramall Lane this season, so it's not to say that he doesn't have them, but I'm looking solely at the efforts that have been on target against him. Does he save more than Dieng or Stefan or Glover have done over the last couple of years of doing this podcast? Answer's yes. And that is the top and bottom of it is if he saves the ball from going in the back of the net, that's going to earn us more points.
Yeah.
There's your argument of is it really that important and paramount to the way that we play where we need to prioritize a goalkeeper's passing ability over their shot stopping ability? No, I don't think it is. We're not Manchester City.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, to be honest, this position in terms of, you mentioned the importance of having someone that can, dink a ball into midfield or invite a little bit of pressure on and be comfortable enough in their ability on the ball to wait and then distribute. I think Michael Carrick's version of what he would want in number one has probably changed. And I think perhaps one reason for that is because from what we've seen now from a rather large, I mean, he's the longest serving manager in the Championship. Even when we had Zach Steffen in goal and we were just simply outscoring teams, it's fair to say now that Michael Carrick's defensive coaching, as well as his coaching staff as well, I'm not just singling out Michael Carrick, but Woodgate, etc., that coaching staff is never going to be something that produces a team or a defence like what Scott Parker has at Burnley. And yes, okay, personnel plays its part as well. But in terms of the makeup and some of the drawbacks of what a Michael Carrick team looks like, I think he will now probably concede that distributing the ball or having a keeper that can distribute the ball, it is far outweighed by just having someone that's going to save shots and save goals, because his teams are never going to be conceding, or like an Aitor Karanka team, for example. His teams are, Michael Carrick as a coach, his teams, we've seen it now for long enough, his teams are going to concede chances. And whether they outscore the team by 7-4, I mean, that's kind of how we did so well to get into the playoffs in his first season and chase Sheffield United down. But I think that Michael Carrick would concede now that actually, from what I want to do and have effervescent forwards who are very much, a few of them will have free roles and they're interchangeable, I think he'll say, I would rather focus on that and building up and scoring goals than potentially having a goalkeeper that's nice to watch when he's got the ball at his feet. I think that's something comes with experience potentially, but he's probably learned now just from this season and how bad we've been defensively that actually how important it is to just have a reliable, safe pair of hands that saves you points rather than starts off attacks.
Yeah, and as we say there, the saves weren't necessarily anything flash, but they keep you in the game and lead you on into the second half. And as I turned around to my brother at halftime and said, yeah, we're probably lucky that we're in this game still. And yeah, the second half was a relatively non-event, if I'm honest. There wasn't a whole lot between the two sides. Look, we we go away from home again, fail to produce a shot on target, which is again unacceptable.
I think there was one. I think there was one from Tommy Conway that I seem to remember. Maybe I'm getting confused with Swansea. They kind of blended into one, to be honest. So I mean, either or between two games, there was about one shot on target. But yeah, as you say, it was a complete non-event. And I think just in terms of, we've discussed Borges and Howson and the defence and the fact that it is very much still makeshift. But I think one thing which is a major concern in terms of both the attack and the defence is against Luton, and I don't think any of the forwards had particularly great afternoons, but you're almost playing with 10 men in these games. Kelechi Iheanacho, I mean, I know we express concerns about his fitness, but there's no real signs of improvement at all as of yet, is there? And I know everyone will say he doesn't offer you enough in terms of attack. He's not got a great work rate. But I think defensively as well as offensively, we've got the likes of Finazaz, we've got Bergsorg, we've got Whitaker, who we can probably discuss as well, because like Giles, that one's, and I mean, that's a permanent signing, so it's not as much of a problem because he's got time on his side. But with Iheanacho, it's becoming increasingly a concern that actually not only is he not offering you anything at the top end of the pitch, but every time the ball went forward, he can't even provide a significant enough press that puts central defenders, fullbacks under any kind of pressure to prevent attacks. Tommy Conway's doing the job of two men up top, in fairness to him at the moment. And I mean, Finn Azaz, he's not in the team for that, but defensively and in terms of like pressing and his output in terms of closing people down, not the best anyway. Tommy Conway is a lot better at doing that. And Bergzog's not fantastic, but he tries. But the point I'm making is, yes, okay, we were under a lot of pressure and they played into their strengths of making balls into the area, creating chances for Morris to basically just out jump Howson. And as a central defender, all you can do is just try and make it awkward. And Howson, with experience, to be fair, did that pretty well all afternoon. And Borges, in fairness, both centre half, considering how many chances we created, those two, I felt come out with a decent amount of credit. Illing Jr. was under some serious pressure in the first half from Jones. Dijksteel was a little bit shaky, but massively improved second half. But yeah, overall, the going back to the Iheanacho point, when you aren't using your full 11 in terms of offensively and defensively, but when you're under pressure, you need someone to take a bit of pressure off, whether that's just holding the ball up or whether that's being relentless and preventing centre-halves having 10 minutes to decide, right, which pass am I going to play? Am I going to try and go through the lines, or am I just going to go a little bit longer here? And yeah, he's... I mean, I don't want to say we called it, but we said it'll go one or two ways. It'll be a fantastic masterstroke or it'll be a complete disaster. And right now, it looks like more than a disaster, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think if you are putting yourself in Michael Carrick's shoes, I think that the only thing that I would say is from everything that we've heard, he's advocated this signing.
Yeah.
So he's got to at least give it. There's some unconscious bias there that he's sort of in charge of this signing. It's been pinned on him, but then also you could make the same case for Whittaker, who we didn't talk about it for the Swansea game, but you and a lot of people on social media were very vocal at how poor Morgan Whittaker was at Swansea and in the games before that as well. In fairness, he was
There
quiet.
was limited signs, but he was quiet. Swansea was a real standout where he's involved in their goal, and just countless times he was just flicking balls around the corner with no real sort of idea of who he was trying to pick out. His first touch is a bit of an issue, and he hasn't seen any time on the pitch. I don't
Since
believe he
he
had a
came on
few
at QPR.
moments against QPR, yeah, but unused substitute, which doesn't say an awful lot. And yeah, I mean, that's a concern. But as I say, I guess because of the fact he's a permanent signing, you kind of think it's going to take time to bed in. He's got that freedom of he's going to be here next season regardless. But even with, as you say, and a lot of the noises that we've heard are that very much Carrick, he wasn't the one saying, I'll just kind of deal with what I'm given. The same with Giles, the same with Edmondson. I think for the most recent transfer window, Carrick has seemingly had more so of a say than what he's previously had for any of the windows, to be honest. And yeah, there's probably that unconscious bias there. But like I say, I do worry, and there's not any signs, if I'm being brutally honest, where I can see that, yeah, that something might come of that. There might be like a fledgling partnership growing between Conway and Iheanacho, or I'm still not even really sure where we're trying to play him, but whatever it is, it's not working.
Yeah, it's not. And I think in a game like Saturday, I think that you'd just go with force, wouldn't you? I think
He's a
for
reliable 6 out of
he,
10, isn't he?
he presses.
Yeah.
And
That's the main thing.
yeah, he presses and he gives you a little bit of an outlet with he's quicker than Iheanacho is, and more than anything, he's just got more energy than him at the minute. And if you're going to go with that, you then move Bergzorg back into his usual position off the left, Azaz in his usual position in the middle, Force off the right, and Conway up front. Job done. But look, he sort of stumbled across a formula that kind of worked against Stoke with Azaz off the left, Whitaker in the 10, Force off the right. And he's sort of had to chop and change a little bit to meet with the sort of fixture schedule in with 3 games in a week. But at the same point, I think to play Iheanacho for for pretty much, well, 90 minutes on Saturday and near enough 90 minutes on the Tuesday night, yeah, you have to be looking at that thinking, come on. You have to be able to see his contribution on the pitch, and he's not offering you anything. So just whip him off. Whip him off. You have Marcus Force on the bench. You can, I don't know, move Ilin Jr. up the pitch and bring a left back on. Whatever you want to do. But he was offering you not a lot. But it would have been good if he finished that chance right at the end of the game,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
right at the death. I mean, that would have been moment of the season, really, considering everything else that all of the all of the stick that he's taken. And I mean, I'm not like kind of defending his performances, certainly not, but it would have been a funny one. But I mean, that result really, there's been a lot of conversation around, is it a good point? Have we dug in and gone to a team that was always going to be difficult and it's a point gained? Or have we just been a little bit fortunate in the first half and it was a dreadful performance? It was. And actually, there's not really an awful lot to be positive with. I think what it doesn't alarm me because it's kind of expected. I'm very much now at a point where I don't really see us getting in the playoffs, if I'm honest. But it's already getting to that point where it doesn't feel as bad of a weekend if results in and around you go your way a little bit. And to be fair, they've been fairly kind over the last few weeks to the point where somehow Middlesbrough are still only 3 points off the playoffs. And of course, that can only go on. There's only a certain amount of games in a season because results can go your way. But if your team aren't winning, then you're never going to make up that gap. But in terms of where we are, obviously we've said about the House and Borges situation, Giles, Whitaker, the fact that we're 3 points off the playoffs. I mean, where as of right now in the international break, as we said at the beginning of the podcast, it's a nice chance to reflect, take stock, and sort of really. I mean, we've had a chance to digest Luton more so than what we would usually after recording. But I mean, like, where are you at with this Middlesbrough team? Are you just enjoying the ride of kind of seeing whatever team turns up on the day? Are you still expecting more? Are the playoffs even achievable? I guess, yeah. What's your current feeling towards this crop?
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm enjoying it necessarily, more so just persisting with it.
Yeah, you've
Um,
got a duty of care to just turn up each week, haven't you?
yeah, literally. It's a funny one, the way that this second half the season's gone, especially with terrible runs of form, and then oh, we might be back. Oh, we're definitely not. Oh, and then yeah, it's a little bit frustrating the way that the whole season's gone so far, but to be 3 points off the playoffs with 8 games left of the championship season, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking at that fixture list, and I just think, no, you gotta hear me out,
Go on. No, go on.
because even if it gets to the point of, yeah, we're not gonna get in the playoffs, there's a lot of teams that are there that I'm quite happily upset for the rest of the season. Quite similar to last season, is it?
Yeah, that sounds dangerously similar to last season. And I think actually one stat which is a real indicator, admittedly, there's different teams in the division this season, but in terms of points, I'm fairly certain that as of right now and last season going into the international break, this exact point of the season, we have the exact same number of points. So I guess that tells its own story. Expectations very much have fluctuated throughout this season. But yeah, I mean, as I say, if as much as it would be funny to ruin Leeds' season and them for bottling it again, or to have a win over Coventry and like make a laugh and a joke about that, just in terms of Middlesbrough, as I say, are the playoffs, are they on? Are they off? Have you kind of lost all hope?
I definitely think that they are still there, 100%. Like, but do I have full faith that this side can string together a run of results that give us a chance of achieving a points total that gets us into the playoffs? No. They've given me absolutely zero reason to give them any sort of trust at all. Look, the run before Stoke was, I mean, to put it sort of just bluntly, embarrassing. The fact that you can go 6 games in a row without a point. It's embarrassing to do that at this level. To then follow it up with 2 wins against two teams that are truly dross.
Even though Derby have become the Galacticos ever since.
Ever since, yeah, like great, won 2 games. To go to Swansea and throw in a performance like they did, it's unforgivable, really, to throw in performances like that, especially off the back of, I don't know, do you reckon they thought that they just got away with it after beating two really, really poor sides? That, oh well, we've won 2 games now, should we just turn it in for Swansea? It's far away as well, so there won't be that many fans there either, so we'll just throw in this performance and see what happens. Oh wait, everyone's booted off against us again. We'll have to beat QPR. Great, we've won there. Yeah, Luton will roll over for us. Oh shit, we could have been beat 8-0. Like literally could have been beat 8-0. But yeah, we've got some games in there which I don't mind if I'm looking like as I'm looking at this now. Oxford, if it was away from home, I'd probably be a little bit more skeptical. You'd expect us to get a result there. Blackburn away, not our most favourite ground in the world. Blackburn have already planned a protest for that game where a lot of the fans aren't going to attend. They've also lost 4 out of the last 5, and the one that they didn't lose, they scored in the 90th minute to secure a draw. They've got a new manager. The fans are not even anywhere interested in this new manager. Wouldn't mind us going there and trying to pick up a result. Leeds, look, marginal falter. It hasn't begun to fall apart quite yet. I don't think it will either, but I'd fancy us to give them a game, same as we did against Sunderland. We
Yeah,
gave them a game. Millwall, relatively naff championship fodder.
it feels very much, very, very much like the type of afternoon that Middlesbrough, the makeup of this Middlesbrough team will really come out on that day. And they'll just, as you say, turn in a performance where they just don't fancy this is a bit hostile.
Yeah,
But I'm crossing everything that we might have from the international break, found some sort of rhythm, found a new togetherness. Someone may have the return of Johnny House, and he might have said, "Lads, I'm getting on a bit here. I need you to pull your finger out because I've been here for God knows how long, seen about 7 different managers, and I come here to get promoted with Gary Monk, and we still haven't managed it. Me legs are giving up on us. Please, can you just put a few performances together, and we can ride off happily into the sunset?"
exactly. And then you get to Easter weekend. You've
Yeah,
got you've got players in this current Middlesbrough team that have got a point to prove against Plymouth Argyle, and just get them out of this division because they
yeah,
always pick up a result against us. And truly, I've had enough. So any of them Whitaker long shots from 95 yards out, if they can arrow in the top corner that day, that would be great. Sheffield Wednesday, look, Chris Wilder said that their season was done on Sunday, so they'll be on the beach.
yeah.
Danny
hopefully.
Rowell's final swan song as Sheffield Wednesday manager as well. Norwich City at the Riverside, the final home game of the season. The Riverside basking in sunshine.
I mean, I don't even want you to say the next fixture because if, and it's a big if, let's like not even think about it, but we've got to go to that stadium against that team yet again with any kind of meaning behind it. You just know what's going to happen.
The Championship Super Deck in sky blue.
Yeah, I mean, let's just not go there. But yeah, Nathan, Oxford up next. As you said, it's one of them where if Middlesbrough have any serious aspirations, it's a non-negotiable. It has to be 3 points, doesn't it?
Yeah, all day. Of course, it has to be 3 points.
As I say, look, we've already, admittedly, a very different Middlesbrough side that also had Emmanuel Latilaf at the top of the pitch, banging them in for fun. And we all thought, wow, we've finally clicked into gear. But we've already put six past them once this season. I don't mean to disrespect Oxford because they've given it a right good go on probably the smallest budget in the division. But it has to be a win. And again, fixtures in and around us, you look at other teams playing other teams and you think that there's very much a possibility where Middlesbrough could somehow find themselves in the top six. And I know Michael Carrick will say, oh, well, yeah, we try and be all professional and say, yeah, well, it's, it doesn't matter until the season's over. In terms of any person that's played sport to any real level and looked at a league table, once you're in a position kind of where you're trying to achieve, you've got something to lose then. If Middlesbrough can sneak a win and the results go their way and they're hanging on even by goal difference in the top six, or you're even level on points, then at that point, I think it creates another change of mindset. You could argue that Middlesbrough have been there this season and let their position of strength in the top six slip away from them. But this would have been the first time for a while where we're kind of clawing back and managed to close a gap. So it certainly shifts the narrative, firstly, but also shifts, I guess, a bit of the mentality. And you'd hope they'd think, right, we've got something to work on here and we've got something to keep hold of. So we'll then go to Blackburn, try and follow it up. It's very much ifs and buts. But yeah, I mean, in terms of obviously what's to come next, we've got the international break. Hopefully we can get some players back. Fella called Riley McGree, don't know if you've heard of him, meant to be like nearing fitness again. Used to play for Borough years ago. Sometimes had a little tash and a bit of a mullet going on. I don't know if you know who he is. He's meant to be nearly back. A couple of centre halves are back. Just two sort of ones to touch on. Firstly, if you do have centre halves back in and amongst it, do you stick with those two long term? Even, I mean, I know Johnny Howson's not going to be able to play 2-3 games a week for the remainder of the season, but do you stick with Howson and Borges more specifically as a centre half? And also, is this the end of Ryan Giles in Middlesbrough?
First question, yes. They definitely retain the places for the Oxford game at the very least. The last two performances that they've put in, I'd say have been pretty good, albeit the amount of chances that they are a part of giving away on Saturday afternoon at Luton. They've stood up to the challenge, especially in the second half, and managed it well, especially with Houghton. I think that his ability to read the game and also his ability as a midfielder to be able to step in and also play passes forward, it gives you a little bit of an upper hand as well, playing him at the back. Obviously, you can caveat that with things like lack of pace, lack of height and physical presence, but for what he gives you alongside a more physical presence in Borges, I think that those two complement each other quite well. I don't want to say that they're like
Yeah,
fantastic.
I agree. I think there's a weird, again, we never thought in a million years it would be the case, but there's a nice odd blend of kind of qualities that are well helping this Middlesbrough team out at the moment, at least slightly an upturn, causing a slight upturn in form. And I think with Borges, I mean, I know there was lots of people crying about Matt Clark leaving, even though he was desperate to leave, which no one seems to be able to get in the head. But the left foot does provide you with a little bit of balance from Borges as well, which, as I say, in terms of just balance, in terms of when you're playing across the pitch or horseshoeing it around. I mean, not that we've done that like to a huge extent, but it's just nice to see a centre half open up and just play without thinking to the left back, rather than seeing Rav van den Berg take a touch infield, then go back to Fry, then kind of have a slight delay in thinking, should I pass to the left back or should I come back inside? It's just one of those things when it's your natural instinct on your left foot, it just flows much better. And I guess that kind of why I almost grouped those questions together just to finish up on the impact or the future dilemma regarding Borges is going to directly affect Ryan Giles, isn't it? Because if he stays at centre half and Carrick goes beyond with that, then it's a straight shootout between Samuel Illing Jr. and Ryan Giles at left back. And I mean, even that seems a little bit crazy to say, but yes, he had difficulties in the first half, but Ryan Giles just has not recovered at all from where he was at. Even in that first half against Sunderland, he looked like he's back in a red and white shirt. He's going to give you, okay, yes, the own goal happens, but he gave you, especially first sort of opening 10, 15 minutes, you thought, yeah, this might actually work. You know, we might not be silly for thinking, and it might not just be something that we've totally romanticized in our head. But that Sheffield United game, ever since then, he's come back into the team a few times, and then to be hooked off at Swansea away. And the one thing that really stood out in terms of a lack of confidence and just, you know, a real shame in terms of where he's at right now, even crosses that he was trying to put in, he shanked 2 or 3 out of play. And you kind of think if Neto Borges, let's say if he does continue at centre half, I can't see Ryan Giles getting back into the team anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a sort of shame where it's at the minute, and I think Ilin Junior's done relatively okay. I thought against QPR he was at his best that I've seen him play. Obviously came on at Swansea at half time, couldn't write that game off really, but
Yeah.
yeah, QPR I thought he did pretty well in certain instances, being able to read the game, nip in ahead of attackers, take the ball, drive forward. At times, his final ball isn't the best, but it'll come with playing games at this level, getting used to the pace of the level, and also age as well. He is a young player, but I think this is the most comfortable that we've seen him so far, looking in a Borough shirt. Obviously, played a couple of games off the right and a couple of games further up the field on the left. But I think this left back role suits him a little bit better than where we've seen him in other roles. Yeah, as for Giles, it's quite painful as a huge Ryan Giles advocate and admirer to see the sort of drop off as to where he is at the minute in his levels of confidence in himself and his own ability, because we know he's got the ability. We know it, we've seen it over a full season. 2 seasons ago, we saw this over a full season, and it appears that just in some cases that if you make the wrong step in your career, it can set you back for years. And
Yeah.
now he's at nearly, I think he's 25 now, or nearing 25, and he's been set back way back in his career off the back of a move to the Premier League, and there's plenty to talk about with that and it being a mistake that it was, but unfortunately, I suppose he's paying the price a little bit now for where he's at and his current performance levels. But yeah, hopefully in the final 8 games of the season, he can provide a good contribution for us.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. With Middlesbrough's injury record, he'll probably get at least a few starts between now and the end of the season because someone will pick up an injury.
Probably
Whether
play
it's
centre half.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I wouldn't want to rule it out. It is that bad, really. So, yeah, I guess that's where we're at. Obviously, it's been a bit of a, as I say, we weren't ever really going to go totally in depth and go all the way back to the Swansea game because it's been wiped from my memory. We obviously got the QPR win and bounce back, and Luton's kind of leveled us off a little bit again. So finishing up, Nathan, Middlesbrough, 3 points off the playoffs. We've got Thomas Tuchel's first England games to look forward to. But yeah, we will be back after Oxford. Fingers crossed Middlesbrough have somehow stumbled forwards into a position that they might even be level on points or in the playoffs potentially, which seems mental after some of our recent podcasts. But yeah, always good to be back talking about Middlesbrough. As always, thank you for your time, Nathan. And that has been another episode of the Boropolis podcast. So if you have enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe on YouTube and on audio platforms. You can also rate and review for future episodes in the running of the Boropolis podcast. Thanks again.